Yeah, welcome back to another episode of the MC65 FM podcast. Today's guest is someone who has spent nearly 2 decades in helping organizations build secure, scalable Microsoft cloud infrastructures. He is a multi-time a Microsoft MVP in Azure and Enterprise Mobility, a three-time Nerdio MVP, author of books on Azure Virtual Desktop and Microsoft Information Protection, and an international recognized expert in Azure infrastructure, cloud security, Azure Virtual Desktop, Windows 365, and identity. Yeah, please welcome Shabaz Darr. I hope I spelled the name right.
Yeah, thank you, Marco. Yes, thank you very much. That was a great introduction.
Yeah, so you're a long time in the Microsoft world. How have you started with this? How have you find in topic?
Yeah, so I mean, look, my kind of okay, obviously I've been in tech for a good 20 years now, right? So I kind of started off, I think like most people in my probably my age group, so I'm just in my early 40s. They probably started off doing sort of on premises, networking or something like that. And then I kind of accidentally fell into cloud because my kind of I was going down the sort of network specialist and there was a specific cloud migration where the consultant in my company wasn't available. So they had to drop me on the project. First time I'd done cloud and the rest is kind of history. But from a kind of, I suppose, community perspective, my sort of journey started in right when COVID hit. Because again, I was used to like most people working in the office full time, 5 days a week, and I went from that to being locked in at home. And I like most people, very different, and I kind of needed a way to deal with it. So I started blogging and creating video content and doing virtual. That's when virtual user groups kicked off, and it was everyone was doing virtual user groups. So I used it as a bit of a coping mechanism for dealing with COVID. um, and yeah, I just grew into it. It started becoming a hobby, and yeah, I just really enjoy it. So I've kind of 6 years later, I'm still here creating content.
Then you said at COVID and you say, okay, I have to write books.
Yeah, this is exactly what it is. I needed something to do, right? Because my normal hobbies were like I was really into playing football, going out, being active. Obviously, with COVID, we were locked in. We weren't allowed to go out. So I
Yeah.
needed some other way of expressing myself, and I just thought, you know what, share my knowledge, right? Share what I'm doing, share my ideas around tech, and that was it.
Yeah, you, I think the most people are familiar here on the podcast what a Microsoft MVP is. Uh,
Mm.
what is a Nerdio MVP?
Ah, yeah. So Nerdio, for those who might not know, Nerdio is a management kind of control plane for specifically for Microsoft Cloud VDI. So that's AVD in Windows 365, and it has an Intune element to it. So they're a partner of Microsoft's, and they're massive in the EUC community. And again, just after kind of COVID, when things started opening up a bit, they started like most kind of vendors. They have a conference, a yearly conference, and I think they wanted again. They saw the blueprint that Microsoft had done because they work so closely with Microsoft around the that community, that Microsoft MVP community. And if you think about it, MVPs, it's just like free marketing for Microsoft, right? Because we're creating content on all the solutions. So I think that's what Nerdio wanted to do. They wanted to create a group of people who are content and community focused to
Mm-hmm.
create content on Nerdio specifically. And I was creating loads of videos on Nerdio at the time. So yeah, I was back then, maybe 2022, 2021. I was the one of three, the first Nerdio MVPs. I kind of dropped out after 2 years. I kind of dropped out, and then I'm recently over the last year I'm back in the program again. So it's the same as a Microsoft MVP, but very specific to Nerdio. So you do content and share ideas around Nerdio, but also help feedback around their products that they have.
Yeah, awesome, awesome, interesting. I think the Nerdio is also an event. It was a Star Wars topic, right?
Yeah, yeah, because it was one of the events was around the was on May the 4th. So they used that whole "May the Fourth be with you," which is obviously a Star Wars phrase, and they had a full. It might have been last year. I think it might have been last year where they did a full Star Wars theme, and I wasn't there. I don't, but it was apparently it was really good. And but that's what conferences are, right? They're fun, and they did a good job of turning that phrase into something for the event. That was really good.
Yeah. A specialist in Azure Virtual Desktop and Windows 365. For someone who is completely new in on these topics, how do you explain VD and Windows 365?
You said that's a really, really good question, and that's something that I battle with customers all the time because a bit of a misconception is that they're kind of competing products. Obviously, they're both Microsoft products, but they're very, very different, right? Azure Virtual Desktop, obviously, again, that really it was in public preview when COVID happened, and that's about the time I kind of fell into it because again, companies, hospitals, banks, they all needed remote working overnight, so it was WVD at the time. But
Mm,
I would say AVD is a very much cloud VDI product, very much similar to I don't know if you remember. Okay, think of like Citrix. Obviously, Citrix remote desktop
mm,
services, Hyper-V,
yeah.
and the I can't remember what VM Horizon is very much in line with that, right? It's infrastructure based, so you have Microsoft will host all the hardware like they do with their with their Azure servers and stuff like that. But unlike on-premises VDI, this is Windows 10, and
Mm,
I think the big differentiator with ABD is it's multi-session. So you can have a Windows 10 OS, and you can have multiple users connecting to it at once, a bit like you would with RDS or Citrix. You would have, but it's server OS, I think, on premises. And it's based on infrastructure. So you have virtual machines of Windows 10 or Windows 11 now, sorry, and you domain join, you can hybrid join, Entra join, all that sort of stuff. And it fully integrates with that Azure ecosystem, right? So the monitoring, the store, Azure files, the security, Sentinel, all that sort of stuff. So
mm,
that's what I would say. APE is more of a pure VDI product. Windows 365 is okay. Sorry, so AVD is IaaS, right? The combination of infrastructure service and platform as a service.
mm,
Windows 365 and is essentially a desktop as a service, DaaS basically. So
mm,
it's it's not it's not an Azure product. It's actually you manage it through Intune, and it just
mm,
in simple terms, you just get a desktop. You get a you access it for the same mechanism you access ABD for the Windows app, but it's just a Windows end user compute desktop, right? So a bit like you have a laptop, yeah, you have a physical laptop with Windows 11 on it, etc. And you use Office on it. That's exactly what Windows 365 is, but it's hosted in the cloud. So you manage
mm,
it through Intune with all the same policies. So it's a SaaS service basically, right? So that's the biggest difference, and they're not competing products as well. With
mm,
as I'm sure you might be aware, with VDI, cloud VDI, you should always base it on the user persona. So the user persona defines what is the best solution.
mm,
Obviously, AVD does have a personal host pool as well, which is that 1-to-1 ratio, but Windows 365 is probably much better for that. Think of things like developers or power users. Windows 365 is really good. Whereas if you have general office users, maybe marketing, HR, finance, then AVD is a really good choice because it's that multi-session and it's just much cheaper to run than that one-to-one basis. So
mm.
that's how I would explain.
What question did you ask when someone comes and asks which one should I choose?
The user personas, I asked, okay, what are your user personas? What type of user and what applications do they use? What's their day to day? When they log in, what do they do? So we try to understand those user personas. It's called user persona mapping, basically, is what you do. And then depending on what that is, what the answer is, like I named a few user, like a developer, right? Your traditional IT developer, that's a user persona, and they have very memory and CPU intensive um, applications that they use, right? Coding for coding and things like that. They have a lot of data they normally store locally, so they need powerful. powerful compute.
mm,
So like a shared multi-session environment is not appropriate for that, right? So like a one-to-one is probably better. So like Windows 365. Whereas let's talk about a general office worker, right? They
mhm,
use internet, they'll use Microsoft 365, PowerPoint, Word, Teams,
mm.
very very low duty, right? Not a lot of CPU compute. That's great for multi-session because you can have tens, hundreds of people on depending on how you size the VM, but you can have 10, 20 people on a single virtual machine using it comfortably. So that's what we do. User persona mapping is what we do to try and answer that question.
Yeah, but I think all Windows 365 has also these option to I don't know how it is direct called, but I think you can activate also GPU or TPUs on it. So I think it's can have also a lot of power.
Yeah,
Um,
100%. There's a new SKU. There are some recent SKUs in the last 6 months or maybe 3 months where they've included GPUs. So again, it's for those workloads like that. GPUs are maybe the architects. The people who kind of design buildings. They have rendering and stuff like that. Or maybe people who do like marketing material, like I need to render images, things like that. The GPU SKU, again in AVD, that can be quite expensive
mm,
because again, it's consumption based. Whereas
mm,
again, Windows 365, it's like a license, like a Windows 365 license. It's SaaS based, it's monthly cost, the same every month. So it makes sense from that perspective.
yeah, yeah, and they say it's computerless. So how can I access it from my I don't know smartphone or tablet
Yeah.
or okay.
Yeah, so again, it's there's obviously two ways to access it, either through a web interface or through the Windows app. So the
Mhm,
Windows app again is what you use for AVD on Windows 365, but again, it's supported on iOS devices, Android devices, Windows devices, the iPad devices as well. So yeah, multiple devices. So it's not just about the laptop anymore, right? Like you said, you don't need a laptop. You could be in a computer cafe somewhere in Europe, or and you're on holiday, and you need to access it. Do it from your phone or an internet cafe or whatever. And again, the beauty is you might think, well, that's a bit of a security risk, but it's all held together by Microsoft Entra, right? Conditional access policies, Intune compliance policies, all those security measures and MFA that we always think about when we think about Microsoft 365 integrates with all that ecosystem. So it's very secure as well.
mm. And there are, I think, two versions. There's Windows 365 Link, I think, and Windows 365 Switch. Uh, what should I choose? What's the right solution for me?
So, well, no, so Windows 360, there's a Link is the device. So it's a thin client. That's there. So yeah, Windows 365 Link is the device, which is especially a thin client. And originally there's only one vendor that did it, but they've got a few more like Asus and I think potentially HP that might be doing a version of it now. But yeah, that's the thin client that's only compatible with Windows 365. I think the version of Windows 365 you're talking about is Flex. It's called something called Windows 365 Flex. Now
Mhm,
that is a very interesting use case because if you think about there's certain environments where you need a shared. So again, I talked about multi-session. This is different from multi-session
mm,
because it's using a single license of Windows 365, but multiple people can use it. So with Windows 365, you have a license and you normally assign that to a user's Microsoft 365 account with or Entra account, sorry. But with this Flex license, it's actually multi-user. So you assign it and then think of like a factory, where you may have shift workers or a
mhm,
call center where you have shift workers. So it's assigned to like the device level and
mhm,
multiple people. So if my shifts in the morning, I can log in and use it, and then I can log back out, and somebody
mm,
else can come and use it, and it's the same license rather than. So let's just say you have 4 shifts a day. Those 4 different people share one single license, so you don't
mm,
have to buy those people for. So it's for specific those use cases where you have either factory shift workers or call centers or even hospitals, right, where you have
mm,
staff nurses working on the in the A&E and in the kind of in the where all the patients are. They have devices everywhere, right? They can just jump on anyone they want, and it's just a mixed, a kind of a shared license. So this is really good for those sort of use cases.
mm. Awesome. Um, yeah. Um, when we look back to the Azure Virtual Desktop, can you a little bit give an overview over the architecture?
Excuse me. Yeah, 100%. So again, it's based on it's all infrastructure, right? But for those people that are listening that remember remote desktop services, so with traditional remote desktop services, you had the RDS came with different roles. So you had the gateway, you had the broker, and you had the web services role, and these were specific roles within our remote desktop services, and you'd normally put those on different servers, okay? And they combined to create the remote desktop services, allowed people to log in. Like I said, there was a gateway, there was a broker, there was a web service, and they all had different functions.
Mm,
But on premises, you had to host those, you had to protect those.
mm,
With AVD, all those same roles are still there. However, Microsoft manage those. So as a consumer, as a customer, we don't touch those. They're in the back end. And it goes back to, again, I'm sure your listeners have heard of the shared responsibility model within Microsoft, right?
mm,
This would fall under platform as a service. So this is the PaaS element of AVD. Remember, I said at the start, it's a mixture of IaaS and PaaS, right? So the broker service, the gateway service, that web service, they're in the back end of Microsoft, managed by Microsoft. Then what that then we move into where the customer, the consumer, us start to have some responsibility, right? So obviously from an identity perspective, Microsoft Entra is the identity provider, but
mm,
it's based off infrastructure, virtual machines, virtual network, IaaS basically, storage, okay, disks, things like that. So that's the IaaS element of it basically. Does that make
mm.
sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, in Germany, it's today it's very hot. So can we talk about pools? What role do host
Uh,
pools play?
that was a great segue. I love that. I love how you did that. So again, host pools are essentially they're logical kind of areas where you host your virtual machines. So you may have a host pool again for your different workloads. Okay, so you might have a developer host pool. So there's actually another level above host pool, so called workspace. So your AVD environment has to have at least one workspace. Again, that's a logical, like a logical container for AVD. And then
Mm,
underneath, within your workspace, you have multiple host pools, right?
mm,
So again, it's based on remote desktop services (RDS) technology. So you would have, say, you have a 5 or 10 virtual machines. They will be part of a one host pool. That could be the developer host pool or the finance host pool for that workload. So you normally separate workloads into different host pools,
mm.
right? And then you might have multiple. You might have an image per host pool, right? And you might have different patching schedules per host pool. So yeah, that's kind of what a host pool is.
Yeah, for a few days back, I also a podcast with Christian Bierhoff, and he came from at the start from his career in Microsoft. He came from FS Logix. So
Mhm.
how important is FSLogix in a successful deployment today?
So I give a massive shout out to Christian Birkenhoff and anyone who was involved with FSLogix when it first started, because honestly, FSLogix has been a game changer for cloud VDI or VDI in general. Again, for those that remember remote desktop services, remember roaming profiles and how painful they were to manage, and they just weren't. It just wasn't a good experience, right? Sometimes the synchronization would fail, and people would have temporary profiles. All that is gone with FSLogix. FSLogix has been very, very important to that AVD popularity because again, it's improved the end user experience. And Really, Mirko, that's key. For any cloud VDI, it can be as complicated or simple as you want, but if the user experience isn't good, it's a waste. And FSLogix managing those profiles and integrating it with obviously the way it does it is it attaches the profile to the session, which is really interesting. So you don't have that folders, you don't have folders where profiles exist anymore. It's actually a disk that attaches itself to that user session.
Okay.
And it has revolutionized how profiles are managed in cloud or VDI in general.
Mm. Yeah, when we talk about profiles, the other topic is, I think, we have to talk about is the storage options. What did you usually recommend uh, for user profiles?
Yeah, again, I sound like a typical consultant, but it does depend, right? There's two options when it comes to user profile storage. They're both so there's Azure Files Premium. Again,
Mm,
and that's still a great solution, and it's but like anything, it's got its limits. So when we're talking about enterprise, right? That we're talking organizations with thousands and thousands of users. Azure NetApp Files is the second option, and because the fact that that can deal with a lot more IOPS, it gives you a lot more IOPS. It can do more storage latency, and it gives you a lot more power. So you can imagine, like I said, maybe a multinational organization that has thousands of users. If they're all logging onto AVD at the same time in the morning, then you need a lot of power to be able to manage the sort of storage and those profiles. So again, for enterprise, I would always go with Azure NetApp Files,
mhm,
which is but I suppose, I mean, 8 out of 10 times, you'll go for normal Azure Files. It's those really big enterprise scale where you want to do Azure NetApp Files.
mm. And but when you look a little bit back, how has Microsoft's AVD architecture evolved over the last few years?
So the architecture's very much stayed the same, but what they've improved on are the sort of features within it. Um, and again, Nerdio's played a big part in this. So AVD from a management perspective, because again, it's infrastructure as service. So the network, you have to manage the network, you have to manage the identity, you have to manage the storage and the virtual machines. Nerdio's revolutionized how you manage that. But yeah, from an architecture perspective, it's not changed. But just the capabilities and the different sort of, I suppose, features within the AVD family. I'll give you an example.
Mhm,
Recently, they launched AVD Hybrid. So AVD Hybrid is very much aimed at organizations that have on-premises VDI, and for whatever reason, right, compliance, regulatory, they may not be able to go to cloud at the moment. So what AVD Hybrid does is essentially it's the back end is Azure Arc, okay? So it uses the Arc agent and you
mm,
install it on your on-premises VDI, and
mm,
essentially it allows you to manage. So it could be VMware, it could be remote desktop services, it could be Citrix or Nutanix. It allows you to manage those VDIs in Azure. Um, there's a caveats with that. It doesn't support multi-session, so it's still only personal host pools. But still, it gives the opportunity to those who are not quite able to put their data in cloud the opportunity to at least start using some of those VDI features. So those are the certain things that Microsoft are doing around AVD to, I suppose, widen the type of users and use cases that can use it.
mm.
But yeah,
Yeah, I think you work with a wide range of clients at Nerdio. Did you any architectural mistakes that you see often?
so I don't actually work for Nerdio, but I work for a company called Cubasys, but we also again have so again, Merc, I'm for those listeners that might not know, I'm based in Australia. So I
Mm,
emigrated to Australia about 18 months ago. So yeah, the we obviously have we're a small MSP, but we have a vast different, type of customers in finance, in manufacturing, in government as well. So yeah, we see a lot of different types of customers using Nerdio and VDI, even in education as well. It's big. It's starting to get big with universities, especially around those. Like universities want secure exam environments and being able to provision those quickly and seamlessly. So Nerdio and AVD is kind of we've seen a lot of use cases around that as well, which is quite interesting.
Mm, mhm. Yeah. Um, Also, I think when we talk about architecture, but we also have to talk about the deployment. I think. Is there anything companies must prepare before they start deploying in Azure Virtual Desktop?
That's a great question. And funnily enough, Mirko, I'm doing a YouTube series at the moment on a consultant and how a consultant should tackle a project.
Hmm.
And part of that is trying to get across the importance of things like discovery. So when you start a project with a new customer, any customer, doing a discovery, especially around cloud, and AVD is no different, right? Doing a design landing zone. So one of the key things about AVD specifically is having a cloud adoption framework aligned landing zone and Azure subscription, basically.
Mm,
So
mm,
again, it's very much architectural, but yeah, it's very important because again, it's IaaS and PaaS, right? So it's infrastructure and platform as a service. So having the governance in place, like tagging, naming conventions, the right subscription structure,
mm,
the right hub and spoke networking is very, very important for ABD. So yeah, one of the things we make sure we do is at least do a CAF aligned
mm,
landing zone before we put ABD in
mm.
place.
And how long does an enterprise deployment take?
So that very much depends on the customer because again, depending on what who you're working with, right? Like for example, in government, things move very slowly. So if you need to get a design approved or they have regular change freezes and things like that, without any delays, right? I would say from a discovery, design, implementation to handover,
Mm,
for a decent sized AVD project, you could at least easy talking business days here, 25 to 30 business days, I would say, from end to end.
mm. Okay. Yeah, that's really fast, I think.
It's
Uh,
again, depends how quickly you can um, how quickly you can get approvals for things. The implementation isn't, like I said, it's not difficult anymore. When AVD was Windows Virtual Desktop was its original name. Well, that's when it first came into sort of publication and kind of came to fame. It was all through PowerShell, Merkel. You had to do it all through command line and PowerShell, right? Now with Nerdio and things like that, you can do AVD deployments in hours, minutes, hours, right? It's very quick. The
yeah.
time is in the preparation, the design, the discovery, the design, putting the foundations in place. The actual implementation is pretty quick and easy now with Nerdio and
Mm,
things like that.
nice one. What are you say governance and so on? What are I say the big breakers for a fast deployment, or then how should a company prepare for a deployment when they say, okay, I go, Shabaz, I go to you. I want that you should deploy it, and I hear it's getting so
Yeah, yeah.
fast. Uh, how should they prepare? What tips can you give a company?
So, I mean, look, understanding their environment, their existing environment is key because when I come into an organization or customer, what I don't know their user base, I don't know how their business works, I don't know what their existing infrastructure is. So, coming with that knowledge is always really helpful because that has a bearing on how the design and implementation will go, right?
Mm,
You know, and making sure they have, making sure they know what naming convention they want, making sure they know why are they doing it? Why are we here? Right? What's their business outcome for this deployment? There must be some sort of problem they want to solve. What's that problem they want to solve?
mm,
These types of information, they need to understand this before just go, go throw a solution in, including like things like AVD. Are they Do they want a cheaper VDI because they have maybe Citrix, or maybe they've got an upcoming renewal, a VMware renewal or Citrix renewal coming up, and that's the business driver. Just understanding that's what they need to do. Understand what they are, and then that makes my job a lot easier because then I can make sure that the solution is focused around giving them those business outcomes and those deliverables.
and how is the topic performance when we talk about APT? Yeah, I think performance is it's a factor for the user experience, but what has the big impact here?
Again, performance is a very difficult one, Mirko, because again, let's say we're it's an existing customer of on-premises VDI. Because on-premises is a lot harder to scale, right? They kind of sometimes they're stuck with a certain amount of storage, a certain amount of compute. They don't have flexibility. So a lot of the time they might not understand what their exact requirements are when it comes to sizing. So a lot of the time, especially in the discovery, a lot of time is spent trying to understand, okay, what applications are going to run on the VDI platform, what's going to run images, what's going to be deployed, during the provisioning process. Um, Sometimes what happens is as well, Michael, it's a bit of trial and error. So you might go in originally with a certain VM SKU for a use case, right? But what you might do is for that first month, you might monitor the usage. And Nerdio's great at this, and things like Azure Advisor are really good at this. They'll give you a report on performance of your virtual machines, and that way you can then tweak the sort of require the configuration. You might put, you might see, oh wow, the over the last month, this host pool's had really high CPU. Let's use a more CPU intensive SKU for those virtual machines. One might be, storage might be, you might have loads of IOPS. Well, you know what, we need to use better premium disks, things like that. So performance is difficult from day one. And I think that what we try to do is go with the best efforts based on the information that we're given, and then afterwards tweak it and kind of use the data we have in Nerdio and things like that to get the optimal performance and optimize.
Um, and I think what topic or how is it with bandwidth? How many did it, I think when okay, here in my office we're sitting, I don't know, 40 people. And okay, it's a problem when we all download I don't know, the some files. Then we have a but how many bandwidth that need an AVD or an Windows 365 system to work?
So again, yeah, really good question. It's there's no real because with VDI itself, right? Just to use AVD or Windows 65, you're just streaming, right? So the bandwidth requirements for that are very low. When we
Okay.
talk about actual usage though, and like, day-to-day usage, like you said, you're accessing files, you maybe, loads of people doing different activities, and the sort of best scenario is that your files, your storage, your data is also in the cloud, because then it's
Mhm.
all on Azure's backbone.
Yeah.
So using things like OneDrive, SharePoint,
Yeah.
Teams, it's perfect for that. When
Mm,
you're maybe accessing on-premises file shares in a hybrid environment, we try to look at, recommending things like having express routes in place because they
mm,
offer better bandwidth and things like that. Um, but yeah, the examples I've mainly seen are when customers are already using M365, so they have SharePoint Online, Teams, things like that. So bandwidth doesn't really come into it because it uses Azure's backbone.
okay. Okay. I think it's could be a 4K video or something, and it's also a little bit slow. But yeah, that's good. But how can an admin monitor yeah, I think the performance on an AVD system?
Yeah, so again, because it's IaaS, right, and you can use Azure Monitor. It integrates fully with Azure Monitor, which is great. Nerdio have a really good monitoring, and like I said, um, one of the features of Nerdio is the sort of performance monitoring. So it makes recommendations based on usage.
Mm,
Um, and again, we being in Azure, you can use auto scaling, scaling plans, all that sort of stuff. So Nerdio will make those recommendations. Let's just say Monday to Thursday, you might have high usage, but then Fridays, maybe people take Fridays off. Nerdio will see that and it'll say, you know what, maybe Monday to Thursday, you need 10 virtual machines in this host pool, but Friday, scale down to 4 because you've got last month you've had low usage on Fridays. So it's very intuitive in that sense. So the performance monitoring, again, it helps you,
mm.
scale it and in and out, and that's going to keep your costs down, right? That's an important factor.
Yeah, that's interesting. So is it? I don't know. Is it possible that Nerdio pays for itself when?
100%, 100%. I think the number that they claim is they don't claim, I've seen it. It's about 60 to 70% savings on your Azure consumption with AVD.
Okay. Yeah, that's I
It's
think
huge.
yeah, that's really
Huge.
huge.
It's ridiculous. And it's not marketing either, Mirko. Seriously, like I said, I've been playing Nerdio for a good 3, 4 years now, and it's true. Implemented correctly, right, with the correct scaling plans and using all those performance metrics, you can save so much money, and it pays for itself in the first 6 to 9 months.
Mm, okay, awesome. That's really awesome. Uh, Interesting. Yeah, normally a lot of tools say they save the costs, and yeah, it's not often work, but interesting. Um, so um, I think another topic a lot of companies think about it's security.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here are a lot of topics. Let us start with conditional access. How important is conditional access and security for Azure Virtual Desktop?
So again, with modern work being so kind of you know funny thing is, a lot of customers that use modern work, they don't realize it. They're using SharePoint, they're using Teams, they're using OneDrive. This is all part of that modern work area of Microsoft, as is Windows 365. And in my honest opinion, I don't think people give conditional access enough importance as it should be. It should be a default in people's tenants. Like, I still see customers that don't use multi-factor authentication, right? With admin accounts or their users, or they might just have their, couple of people using MFA. Um, and yeah, but for me personally, conditional access should be one of the first things you configure within your M365 environment, because now with cloud, right? The saying is that identity is the new perimeter. It used to be the network, right? When we used to be in data centers and on premises, but and conditional access is a security mechanism for your identity, right? Protects your identity with things like MFA and signing risk, signing risks and risky users, things like that. So compliance policies are so powerful, and for me, this should be one of the first things that are implemented with M365 and Entra.
And another, I think, yeah, a little bit of buzzword, but yeah, how do zero trust works on this kind of system?
So I've got a bit of a hot take on. You might not call it a hot take. I think it's a hot take. A lot of time, in my opinion, people take zero trust as literally like everything locked down, no one has access. So zero trust is based on basically block everything and ask questions later, basically, right? So lock everything down. I can't remember the exact phrase, but that's essentially what it is, right? Zero trust. You don't trust anything, verify. Don't trust anything, verify everything is essentially what it is. Now, in practice, and I've seen this happen, that is very, very counterintuitive, and it has a knock on effect on productivity of users, right? If they're having to do MFA checks every hour. Can you imagine how frustrating that is when you're trying to work and
Mm,
once an hour you have to do
yeah,
an MFA check? Yeah.
yeah.
Um, the key for zero, in my opinion, I'm a big, you know, don't get me wrong, I'm zero trust. I understand it, and I understand why it's so important. But there has to be a balance, Mirko. You have to balance productivity with security. Otherwise, you know, your users will be frustrated. This is then shadow IT comes in where they try and circumvent the system to try and stay productive, and it causes chaos. So, although I understand the concept and why it's important, I think there needs to be a balance when it comes to implementing zero trust realistically.
Mm, mm. And yeah, I think uh, yeah, another topic is the Microsoft Defender. What roles does this play in security on the systems? And we look at uh, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, look, the Defender. So there's two forms of it, right? There's Microsoft Defender, which is IaaS and PaaS based, but I think you're maybe referring to Defender XDR, which is like the SaaS element of it. So that's kind of protecting your Microsoft 365 element and your sort of end user devices, and that's such such a big product because there's different facets of it, right? XDR has multiple different solutions within the solution because they've got Defender for identity,
Mm,
Defender for apps. There's what else is there's Defender for there's like five or six of the products. Can't remember them all, but it's just a suite of products, and it's again, um, it's very powerful and implemented in the right way can really help with sort of proactive rather than reactive security within your environment, like Defender for Endpoint as well, which is more than just an antivirus.
mm.
So yeah, again, it's a great product, and I think that's kind of revolutionized Microsoft security as well. I think played a big part in Microsoft becoming one of the leaders in that area.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
And uh, um, you work a lot of yeah with this virtual desktops and so and is there or I think uh, Microsoft have this Copilot for anything,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
especially in their platform. But does has AI changed virtual desktop environments?
I wouldn't say it's changed. It's not changed them from an architectural perspective, or it's not changed them from an implementation perspective. But I
Mhm.
think from a from a operational perspective, yes, it has changed them because um, getting data out of you know AVD and getting data out of Windows 365 to be able to improve that user experience. I think that's where it's changed the game a bit, and that's where it's really improved the VDI experience. But from the end user perspective, it's not changed much. Their experience is pretty much the same. Yeah, they can use Copilot within the VDI platform. But I think from our perspective, Mirko, as IT professionals and the admin, yeah, it has helped um, not just get the data, but also use it to help improve end user experience.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, um, I think one other hot topic actually is GPU, and we have the GPU one side. Yeah, we have this. Yeah, on the AVD, but we have also it on Windows 365 now to enable. Do the GPU enabled cloud PCs become a standard? So I ask because I am by an very fucking expensive Copilot Plus Copilot Plus laptop, and after 3 days after guarantee, it's broken.
Oh dear. Oh
I
dear.
know, and never Lenovo again. Yeah. So yeah, did you think this is something we see more in the future in the future?
I 6 months ago, I would have said
Mm,
yes, but
mhm.
right now I'm saying no, and I'll explain why. One of the
Okay.
biggest issues with GPU enabled infrastructure in the cloud is
Mhm,
capacity, right?
mhm,
What AI has done, Mirko, is totally changed the game when it comes to um, compute, especially public cloud compute, because AI needs so much compute and CPU and GPU and all that sort of thing. Um, what's happened is data centers they've run out of capacity. So you're seeing more and more like if you work with AI models in maybe AI Foundry or even Copilot Studio, things like that. In a lot of regions, especially so I'm in Australia, Australia East is very low on there's very few AI models that are available to use because there's no capacity. And essentially they can't make the data centers quick enough.
mm.
So they can't make them quick enough for demand. And because of that, I think now we're going to see a slower uptake of GP because they're not available, Mirko, so they're not going to be able to use them, right? So I think that's going to slow down the usage of GPU enabled SKUs. Otherwise, I'd be saying yes. I think they were going to be the future, and but no, unfortunately, I think that's going to be slowed down massively now because of AI.
Yeah, yeah, I think, uh, the same, but from another reason because, mm, I see the token pricing,
Oh
it's
yeah.
incredible expensive, so I use a lot of models now locally, so I have not spent there so much tokens for some things, it makes sense, but yeah,
But why
yeah,
why is it expensive though, Mirko? It's expensive because there's not enough of them, right? So they have to make them. They have to somehow pay for them, and because there's not enough. The more of something there is, the cheaper it gets, right? And then the more people buy into it, the cheaper they can make it. Right now, there's not enough. There's not enough GPU, so they're having to make it expensive.
yeah, yeah, I think actually it's not a GPU problem because Microsoft say I think they have, I don't know, 100,000 GPUs, they cannot use because they have not enough, energy actually, so they
Ah, wow. Okay.
was a story uh, they will build an, nuclear power plant, only for to have enough energy. That's, I think also a problem, but yeah, I don't know if the story is right. I hear it, sometimes. Yeah,
Nothing surprises me anymore. Nothing surprises me anymore.
yeah. Um, yeah, Nerdio, I heard you are a big fan of Nerdio.
Yeah, yeah. I said I've used it since for a good 3-4 years. So yeah, big fan, 100%.
Yeah. Which task does Nerdio really simplify?
Um, so one of my favorite features. I'll talk about two features. The first one is what's called scripted actions, and these are just automated scripts you can run as part of your provisioning process. That could be anything from adding or increasing your disk size to running a script or whatever. I love the scripted actions. But one of the favorite my things are the automation of the imaging process. So the automation, really, I think Mirko is probably the best answer I can give you because I'm going to give you an example. You can schedule and automate the full um, patching of a image, right? Rather than reimaging the actual VM like you would
Mm,
traditionally a laptop, you
mm,
actually again this fully automates this process where it will boot up a virtual machine with your latest image. It will run the patch schedule, right? It will then capture that image, put it back into AVD, and it'll redeploy that image to new host pools, new VMs, and then delete the old VMs. Automated while you're asleep. You wake up, everything's working.
yeah. Uh,
That's mad, right?
yeah. Think you could you could longer run Azure, Virtual Desktop without Nerdio?
I wouldn't. It's just look, it's fine, it works, but
Mm,
it's not as efficient. right?
Mm,
You will spend more time managing it, and
mm,
it's not like it doesn't work. But like I said, if I don't know about you, Mirko, but I want an easy life. So
mm.
if I can find an easier, quicker way to do something, a task, I will. And Nerdio just simplifies the general administration of Azure Virtual Desktop.
And would you say Nerdio is something also smaller companies will take a look, or is it only for big enterprise?
No, no. So Nerdio has two sort of products. First one's Nerdio Enterprise, Nerdio Manager for Enterprise, which I suppose again it doesn't. I mean, what do you call a small company, right? I mean, we have companies that are maybe 20, 30 users and they use it. We have ones that are hundreds and they use it. We have ones that are thousands and they use it. But the other product is NMM. So that's the MSP version. So that's more, I would say, attuned to smaller customers who don't want to manage Nerdio themselves. They want to manage partner like Cubasys to manage it for them. So it's like a multi-tenanted sort of management ecosystem. So um, yeah, I would say it doesn't matter what size you are. If you have compelling use cases where it makes sense to put Nerdio in, because again, it's going to give you a cost saving or it's going to give you some business outcome, then yeah, it doesn't matter what size you are.
Mm. Yeah, it's okay. There's one tool that's really for companies that buy the Nerdio tool, or yeah, rented, and the other it's for, I say, for consultant companies or for partners. They can run multi instances with
Yes.
this. So the company have
Basically, yeah.
saying only, okay, here, Shabaz, please handle this for me, and you can say, okay, we can make it really cheap because we are really fast, which is Nerdio.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. 100%, exactly right. And you can put managed service around that.
Mm, mm,
Really powerful.
mm. Yeah. Um, what when we look a little bit in the future, where do you see Azure Virtual Desktops in, I say, in 3, 5 years?
If I'm honest,
Mm,
I don't again I feel like ABD it's got its use cases. I don't see how or where it could go from again from that end user experience perspective. Where I see the advancements coming are in the back end, to help manage it, to help get data out of it, to help that end user experience. Like I said, they've recently done the Microsoft launched AVD hybrid for the on premises sort of workload. It's also, it integrates with AVD. AVD integrates with Azure Local as well. So it's pretty much got all the bases covered, if I'm honest. Like I can't. It's a great question, but I honestly couldn't see where what they're missing, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah. Uh, Interesting. Yeah. Also, the other thing, did you think Windows 365 will evolve more or get more famous?
Yeah,
Mm,
100%. So when it first came out, Windows 365, I really struggled to see the use cases for it, and I thought it was overpriced. And in the last 6 months, I would say I've worked closely with it. And again, it's evolved so much. Like, I'll give you an example. There's a version of Windows 365 which is just simply for almost like a DR use case. So, like, Mirko, let's just say you have a laptop,
mm,
you use a physical laptop, but your laptop breaks and you can't use it, right? You're a home worker. You
mhm,
have to send your laptop to the central office. It has to get
mm,
fixed. See how you get it back. That could take 2 weeks, right?
mm.
What do you do in the meantime? What do you do in the meantime? Right? So
Yeah.
there's a SKU called Windows 365 Reserve, which is basically a short term basically license, and you use it while your laptop's getting fixed. Basically, use Windows
Uh,
365 while your laptop's getting fixed.
mhm.
So yeah, it's like stuff like that is just so clever, I think. And so I honestly see Windows 365 coming out with more things like that, and like, like I said, there's Flex as well, which recently came out. So I definitely see Windows 365 advancing. Um, and obviously, again, we talk about AI. There's Windows 365 Agent. Have you heard of that?
No.
Oh wow. Okay, so this is basically an agent.
Yeah.
Excuse me, that you give an identity,
Mm-hmm.
and you basically give it some tasks, right? So you may say, "I want you to create these documents," like you do you with a prompt, right? Say, "Do this, do this, do this."
Yeah, 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 yeah.
What it does is you launch it, and it will basically log in to a Windows 365 device, and the agent will start doing all the tasks you've given it on an actual Windows 365 instance.
Oh, yeah,
It's like it's
that's
so
that's
cool,
cool.
right?
Yeah, yeah. So I don't have I never have go anytime back in my office.
Like having a virtual, literally a virtual assistant, which does like obviously there's agents are similar, but this is like it'll do physical tasks like creating documents or whatever task, like a manual
Yeah.
task you need doing. Could
Mm.
be creating a spreadsheet or whatever. They'll go and do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the yeah. Sometimes I come a little bit confused because there it's Work IQ and Copilot Studio and so on and agents and yeah, yeah.
They're not
I'm
Microsoft are not great at naming things because yeah, I get confused between there's Agent 365 and there's Windows 365 Agent. So
uh,
how confusing do you want to be, right?
yeah. I think when the marketing guy get only $10 per renaming, he must the best guy on Microsoft.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not good.
Uh, so, I have in every round, I have a rapid session, I have a rapid fire round. So I give a
Ooh.
short answer, short question, and you give a short answer. So,
Okay.
Azure Virtual Desktop or Windows 365?
AVD,
Azure Portal or PowerShell?
PowerShell.
Bicep or Terraform?
It's got to be Terraform.
Microsoft Intune or Group Policy?
Oh God, Intune.
Windows 11 or Windows Server?
What was the first one? Windows
11?
or Windows Cell? Windows 11. Oh,
Coffee, tea, or energy drinks during development?
ooh, coffee.
One feature everyone should learn in the Microsoft ecosystem,
Automation infrastructure as code.
and one technology everybody should stop fearing.
AI.
Okay, and when Satya Nadella comes to you, Shabaz, and say, "I give you all the money and the resources you need," what feature will you develop?
Oh, that's such a good question. That's a tough one. Feature for AVD or cloud?
You can on the Microsoft ecosystem.
Micro ecosystem. Okay. Oh, that's such a tough question. I don't know. There's so much. Honestly, I would try and improve Copilot as an AI tool. Just as an AI tool, I don't think it's very good. So yeah, I would try and improve Copilot.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you. My closing question is any if people can only remind one thing from this discussion, what should it be?
Um, that sharing your knowledge is good, right? Whatever knowledge you have in this community or with your work, share it with people because what makes it different is it's your experience that you want to share, and no one's experience is wrong or right. And yeah, I'd like people to share their knowledge.
Mm, yeah, and who is the guy or woman I should invite next to the podcast, and what question should I ask him or her?
Ooh, that is a very, very good question. I'd like to I'd love to. I don't know if you'll be able to get them, but Christian's boss at Nerdio, who used to be at Microsoft as well, um, Scott Manchester. That'll be a great
Scotland.
podcast.
Okay. And what is there any question I should ask him?
I'd just like to know because so I call Scott Manchester the godfather of AVD, right? Because he created it. I just love to know when he was, when he was first part of those early days, what was his thinking behind AVD and what problem was he trying to solve, right? Because obviously VDI was a thing. There was lots of different VDI products. What problem was he trying to solve when him and his team came up with like AVD and or WVD at the time?
Mm, okay. Yeah, then thank you so much and for this great interview. I think it was a fantastic discussion. We covered a lot of topics like Azure, Virtual Desktop, AVD, Windows 365, cloud infrastructure, also cost optimization, security, AI, and yeah, the future
Mm.
of end user computing. I think your audience how much clear understanding when to choose AVD, when to choose the Windows 365, and so on. And yeah, also all the infos from you, the people find in the show notes, the links, and so on. And yeah, thank you so much for staying here with me over an hour. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for inviting me, and I appreciate what you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.
You as well. Take care. Bye bye.